Alright guys, so I just finished watching a film on Tubi from this year called 16 Bits. It's not a horror film. I don't even know what to categorize this as. We'll get to it. This is going to be spoiler free for the most part, because if what you hear here sounds interesting, you don't want to know too much going in. Like, there's some fun twists and turns here. But it's always a little nerve-wracking for me in the few times since I started the channel that I've either talked to a director and they sent me an early copy of the film to review, or in this case I had the pleasure of talking with the director and he told me about this film, check it out. There's always that little worry in me because you guys know that I'm always going to give my honest opinion on what I feel about a movie. So part of me is always kind of like nervous that I'm going to watch it and not like it, and then come back and do a review and then have to say I didn't like it. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet, and this is no exception. I had a blast with this movie. Kudos, Aaron. Like, this movie is just fun as hell. Now, if you're a gamer, especially if you grew up like I did with Sega Genesis, you'll probably already love this movie, like, just by the premise. Now, I'm going to read it off IMDb because it's going to do a lot better reading that than whatever I'm going to come up with. The lines between reality and video games blur when a lonely loser befriends a violent street fighter who emerges from an old 16-bit fighting game. It's pretty much all you need to know going in. Now, Wax Waster is the name of the brutal street villain, and he is played by Kevin Caliber. We also have the loner, who is played by Jeremiah Benjamin, whose name is Philip in the film. Now, the performances by these guys. This is a low-budget film, but this guy knows how to write to his budget, like, very well. I said this with Chest from last year. Same thing. Knew how to write to a budget. If you have whatever your budget is, and you know that you're not going to be able to put in certain things like a car explosion stunt or like anything like that. It sounds simple and common sense, but just don't write that into your script if you can't afford to do it. It's actually a pretty rare treat when you see an indie film or a low-budget film that writes to its budget extremely well. And this is a great example of that. Now, the performances by these two guys, this whole movie, there's a bunch of comedy in here. It works for me 100%. It might not work for you, and you'll know within the first 5 minutes of this movie whether the comedy will work for you. Just from Philip's character, these performances are over the top. Some would look at this and say the acting's not great or that it's overacting. That's the point. It's supposed to be over the top. The whole character of Wax Waster, he comes from a video game. He's supposed to be over the top like he is, like his performance shows. Same with Philip. Like, his character is really eccentric. He's got friggin' a nipple chain, and he has no shirt on most of the movie. He just has a nipple chain from nipple to nipple. It's funny as hell. There's some great camera work here. There's some great filters being used in certain scenes, lighting, and all these things end up making it feel like a bigger production than what its budget was. There's a lot of surrealism in this movie and just trippy type stuff. So if you're into that, those type of movies, I am, another thing that'll work for you. But the whole premise here, while we've heard and seen movies of, characters coming out of a movie or a film or maybe even a video game. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But the way that it's utilized here, the whole premise, is very creative. It really is. And not just the video game inside of the movie that he's playing and Wax Waster comes out of, which, Aaron, if you guys actually made that game for the movie, better send me a copy of it because I want to play that game. But it's not just the game in the movie. There's a lot of that 16-bit retro game feel to this movie all over the place. There's even establishing shots of a motel that's in 16-bit like a video game, and then it proceeds to go into back to live action with the scene. You see this a few times here. You get 16-bit music. I can't praise enough just the feel of this movie and the tone of it, and how perfectly it captures the retro gaming feel. And just for its premise alone, how ridiculous it is. Like I said, all of this is ridiculous, but it's gonna either work for you or it's not. I would say if you're a fan of video games, check it out, especially retro games. If you're a fan of trippy, crazy, surrealistic movies, check it out. If you're a comedy fan, like I said, it'll depend on your tastes. But all around, I had a blast with this movie. And I look forward to checking out more of your stuff, Aaron. I know you did a few shorts and a few feature films under your belt. Absolutely would love to see them, because this was a real treat. And I really appreciate our conversation. Thanks for telling me about this movie. And I will definitely be pushing this, because this is a fun-ass time. So, alright guys, 16 bits, it's on Tubi. My British friends, you're fucked, because they still don't have Tubi over there for some reason. If there's anywhere else, Aaron, if you see this, that it could be seen besides Tubi, let me know in the comments. Maybe I can let some of my friends who don't live in the States and don't have access to Tubi for some reason, they live in the Stone Age over there, maybe I can get them to see it too. But real great time here. And for a low-budget film, these are the happy surprises. Like when you find a little gem like this, and you just have such a great time with it. So, alright guys, 5 p.m., The Guest, watch along with Dave and Gareth, Video Tasties, and Savage Zombie Reviews. That's going to be a blast too. Oh, P.S. I had to add this in because I just thought of it. Reminds me a bit of Slumber Party Massacre 2, which is my favorite in the Slumber Party Massacre series. If you've seen that film, like I said, this isn't a horror movie. There is violence and stuff. Like, the guy's just villainous street brawler. So there's great stuff here. But in Slumber Party Massacre 2, you have the driller killer with the guitar who's in the girl's dreams, and then he eventually comes into her reality out of the dream. And there's a lot of over-the-top stuff in there, too. Just figured I had to throw that in there. But yeah, if you're a fan of Slumber Party Massacre 2, even more reason to check this movie out, because I could see some similarities. Alright guys, I'll see you then. Till then, take care.